Hey everyone, welcome to Voices from the Mausoleum. We have a special live for you. We're going to be talking about the Blackwell Ghost franchise. And with us, we have our special guest, Jeff Whitmire.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Thanks for having
The
me.
Blackwell Ghost expert.
You're welcome. Yes. The reason why I know anything about this franchise.
Yes. Yeah. The reason I watched the rest of the movies.
Well, for people who don't
Blackwell
know,
boom last March or what it was. That was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when you were posting about it, and it just sort of became this hype train.
I never expected that. I did not expect. I had like followers or like Twitter friends that were like, you know what, I'm going to mute this at some point because it was everywhere, and I did not expect that to happen, but it was really cool.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, which would be crazy if they didn't, but why don't you give us a little introduction as to who you are, what you do?
Sure. I'm Jeff Whitmire. I'm a horror comedy musician. I write parodies and original songs about horror movies. I just recently put out my first album of horror music called Stabby Road in October. Was it October? No, September. Oh my gosh, it's been that long.
Oh,
But
wow.
so I've been out a couple months. So my first one. So that's actually available out there, and I do a lot of videos on my YouTube channel and everything of all the songs I do.
Yeah. All the links for that and where you can get your own copy of Stabby Road is in the description for this episode.
And as we were saying, the whole reason why we're actually even here tonight is because of you.
Yeah.
So when you were posting about it, what was it, back in March?
I think it was March or May.
It's been a minute.
Was that the first time you had ever seen any of them?
Yeah. I actually stumbled on it. I'm doing the Horror 365 challenge, which was my goal was 365 movies I've never seen, horror movies.
Wow.
And so, I was always kind of looking for wherever I could find it. I'm a big found footage fan. And I must have been doing a search or something, and someone mentioned, the Blackwell Ghost, and I had never heard of it, as many people have not. And especially the way it's distributed. And I found out that the first one was on Tubi. So I watched it, and I was really, really interested. I was really intrigued. I thought it was a really well done first film, very low budget, definitely a DIY. I was really impressed. So I was like, I'm gonna I found out that the rest are available on Prime Video. There's 7 currently.
Mm-hmm.
And the prices aren't crazy. They were like, I think $3 to rent one. And then like 9 or 8 or 9 to buy one. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get like, I'll rent like 2 and 3 and I'll see. And within 2 days I had watched them all. So I was hooked. And as anyone who's I know people that begin to watch after I started posting kind of said the same thing. Like once you get to like 3 and 4, you're pretty much stuck. You're hooked. If you're bought in by 3 and 4, you're there. And
so
that's what it was. And then I got sad after the rental started to go away. So I ended up over a gradual period of time, I ended up buying them all. So I have them all on digital. But yeah, so that's when I was like, my reactions on Twitter were legit, and I was just like surprised. I was like, wow, this is really good. This is really, oh my God, this is actually getting better. It's not something you usually expect from a franchise.
No.
Even horror fans, we love our series and our franchises, but we usually will admit it's unusual for a series to get better as it goes. But the Blackwell Ghost definitely does. I would argue.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's also exceptionally difficult to find a found footage franchise that continues to get like better as they go. So Tom and I do found footage Fridays every Friday. We covered the first one not long before you posted about watching the other ones.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm not like within like, so that was maybe a month or 2 before. It wasn't super long, but back at that point, all 7 of them were on Tubi.
I heard, I heard a rumor that at one point they all were, and I was like, are you kidding me?
Literally right before you decided to watch them all, or when you went through your binge of them, right before that, all 7 of them, because I had a hard time figuring out based off the cover clips that I could see which one was next and how, whatever. So like I was going through them and I messaged Tom and I was like, did you know there were 7 of these movies and they were all on Tubi? And then when I went back after I saw you post about it and I realized, I was like, man, they're all like, you have to rent them now. So I was like, literally months, just a few months. And I did the same thing. I was like, well, I'll watch a couple of them. We'll see. And then I ended up, I think I watched the 2 through 7 in the course of 2 days, like a Friday and a Saturday, or maybe a Saturday.
I think you did too, because you were DMing me as you were watching them.
Yes. Yeah, I ended up watching. I spent the $35 or $40 or whatever it was altogether to watch all of them in the span of 2 days. And it was literally like, I was the same way. I was absolutely blown away with how consistently good they were and how good they got.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely I went back and I kind of did a refresher, because it's been, I watch them frequently, but it's probably been about a month or so since I watched them the last time. But so I did go back and I was watching, and then once again, like I was seeing all those little things where you can see, and Turner Clay, the guy who creates these, is a very mysterious person, but you can see where he clearly is always trying to up his game, and I really appreciate it. Like, it's been a hot minute since 7, and we're pretty certain he's got an 8 coming out. I mean, he's dropping hints.
He posted a clue on.
He posted a clue in August.
Facebook, right? Yeah.
Which is another thing I love about what he does. I mean, he buys into the whole thing. Whereas my understanding is, like, when he mentions that you can find his poster online, you can actually find that post. Like he gets into the whole immersion thing. And so, August he posts a clue, and so that means something's coming. We just don't know when.
Yeah.
I was hoping for Halloween time, but here we are.
I was hoping too, and I know I've seen he's dropped some in December. I went back and I looked at the release dates, and it looks like he's done 1 or 2 December drops. So now crossing fingers for
fingers and toes, yeah. Because Steve, you just watched these like pretty recently, right?
About a month ago.
Was it a month ago?
A month or 2 ago? I forget now. It was like, I think I watched maybe 1 or 2 a night for like a week.
Yeah.
And what I love about it, I was gonna say, it almost feels like a TV series.
Yes, I said the same thing. Yeah, it's like a good serial.
Yeah, because it really maps out, and they're shortish, right? It's almost like the length of like HBO show or something, right? Like they're like
an hour 10, an hour 10 for most,
and just the way it develops, I can't imagine. Because I know it's like he had to sort of pivot depending on locations and certain things. But I'm like, I wonder how much he planned out in advance or not, because they flow so well.
I was going to bring up the same point. Like when he did the first Blackwell, how much of this was planned?
Right.
Yeah.
Or did it shift? Because there's a very clear shift between 2 and 3. And once 2 and 3, it becomes, the series really is when it kicks in. But and I had someone recently watch it who got frustrated. He's like, I have questions after Blackwell goes 2, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna be upset because those aren't gonna be answered.
No,
but I'm like, stick with. Like I always tell people, stick with it.
Well, we don't know. They might be answered.
I mean, they might be answered. Yeah, I mean, we don't know how we're, because he does do little ties throughout it. I noticed that going back to the second time, he does reference, like he still is. I don't know we're getting spoilery, but he has the teeth from 2 still.
That's true.
So he does drop little hints here and there, but
I think that's probably my favorite moment of the first section of the story from 1 and 2 is the because I realized it before he realizes it in the moment when he's going through and he finds the teeth. I was like, there was points where I'm watching and I was like,
I think that's where I was really hooked, because I mean, I'll even admit, like 1 is a good film. It's a good film.
It is.
But going back now, it looks like 1 feels very much like a warm up to me.
Yes.
And so, which is like, okay, this is a good solid film. But when you hit like the teeth in part 2, I think that's where I knew this was game over. This was a whole different ball game at that point.
Yeah.
Well, I think he hits his stride right with 2 in terms of like, he's not just doing sort of like a found footage ghost movie. I mean, he's really doing like a mockumentary investigative journalism sort of.
And that's what I love about it. Right. It's like when he starts 2, he buys right into the immersion with the whole, people, I think it was 2 or 3, but he still say like, people always ask me, was it real? Does it matter?
Yeah.
People will stop me on the street. And so he really sells the immersion of it. And I love the fact that he does them as documentaries, because then he can get away with the music cues. He can get away with, the cutting and everything. And it's perfectly, it works for it.
Yeah, it does. I think that, and that's one of the reasons I actually like what mockumentary style in general is something I really, really love in the found footage subgenre. And this was exactly like, so when we set up to watch the first one originally, I went into it completely blind. I didn't watch a trailer. I didn't read anything, nothing. And when I remember getting to a certain place in it where I was like, is this fake? Like there was moments because it's the things, especially in that one, and you touched on this, talking about it being kind of like a warm up, is the things that happen are so subtle that they aren't, they're not hard to believe. They're not hard to buy into. And so there were times where because it looks like a documentary when you're looking at it, when you read the synopsis. I went and looked it up and it was like documentary on blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, so is it a found footage movie or is it a documentary? Which is great.
And the more you explore, the crazier it gets, because I was like looking up this guy. I like check his social medias. There aren't like all the social medias for Turner Clay, except for the Facebook, are fake. They don't go to anywhere. The only connection to this guy is the Facebook page, where he'll drop some clues every once in a while. He has the website, which I did actually email at one point to ask him if there was ever, are they coming back to streaming? Is there going to be physical media? Anything, because I've always said once these drop back on streaming, we're doing one heck of a live watch party. But yeah, he really sells like the immersion of it. I mean, this guy, but then you find out, okay, well, this guy did like work with Toby Keith at one point. There's pictures of him with Toby, and then you find like the elevator sequence and everything. So you're like, okay, so there is enough to sell that this guy's a filmmaker and he's making film. Yeah, right. And he does have other films, which I did, hunt down and watch, like Raccoon Valley and the Phoenix Tapes, which are also very good.
Yeah, I haven't seen Raccoon Valley, but I've seen Phoenix Tapes.
Yeah, Raccoon Valley is the one that he filmed at the Blackwell house, right?
Yeah, it's the zombie one, and then the wife is in that one too. She plays, and he actually shows up too. So seeing Turner after 7 Blackwells in anything else is weird. It's really weird. Yeah. Raccoon Valley is like is a zombie film that he did.
That's right.
Very cool.
And he references it in part 2, which is weird.
He does.
Oh, okay. The wife was the one dynamic that I missed after the first one. Obviously, elements come back to it, but I loved sort of him dragging her to the house to investigate.
Yeah. Right,
which doesn't really
happen in
sort
2.
of the fun with the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Although I do love, I think a lot of people argue, their favorite's 4, and with, obviously understandably. And what I think I love about 4 is that the wife role comes back. Although she's not there, she plays such a vital role. Like where you find out that now we're not just doing documentaries anymore. We find out he's so obsessed he spent all the money. And then that comes back at the end on the phone call. And I'm like, whoa, like this is getting real now. This is really good.
The family dynamic, right?
Yeah, especially you get this whole conflict thing going on, which of course sets up for part 6, but in a big way.
Yeah, and the fact that it even shows, like, because with the kids and stuff, when he like when he has like the phone conversations about where the kid, like it's like it's so well thought out that like the things that you would wonder, like you watch movies all the time that have gaps, and you're like, well, what about what did they do with the kids? What did they do with this? What did they? But it feels like he thought through all of that because
everything,
there's no
it's
room.
So meticulous, it
is, and it's like, and so there's. And that helps, of course, with you being like, this is real. Like this
right. Which is why I'm glad like he doesn't rush them. I mean, it feels like it's taking
your time,
But take your time because he makes them just so well thought out and meticulous. And then that also works for him in his favor because I don't know, like you mentioned, Steve, I don't know how far ahead he planned, like to 7 or anything, but he was able to use pieces that he had already introduced because it was so well thought out and bring all that back. Like, he really sets up the dominoes well.
And I wonder how much he filmed, but then maybe cut out of one film and then used it
right
part of the other, right?
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Like if he's got footage that he's that he kind of keeps on the back burner for later if he needs it.
Like if he was like, I have one scare here, I'm actually going to take it out and save it for this part, right?
Yeah.
At least that's how I would plan out, because I would feel like, shoot as much as I can.
Right.
And then just kind of rearrange the pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I thought was consistently good about this is it's like jump scares get me all the time. Jump scares they're fine. They work. But like for real genuine scares or things that make me unsettled, it does kind of take a lot. Because I just watched so much stuff. And so
Yeah.
you know what surprised me was when we get to, where he's in, we get into like, I think this is like after 2. So it's like 3 and 4 when he's in the other house and he's like, we're hearing the banging, right? The banging is consistent in multiple movies. Do you know that never stopped being uncomfortable for me?
Right. Especially as you find out what it is.
What it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, I thought about this one day when I saw a few people post, because it was going to happen. It was inevitable. I mean, everyone likes different things. A few people that I saw on social media were not getting into the Blackwell, and we're like, what are you all seeing in this? And one of the things I kept seeing is if you go into it expecting, and don't get me wrong, I love straight up found footage. I love the Blair Witch, Hell House, all that, Grave Encounters. I love those movies. But if you go into it expecting that bombastic found footage, that's not what you're getting with Blackwell.
No.
And people were saying, well, nothing happens. And I thought in my head, I didn't say this, but my thought was, what the reason why people who love Blackwell love it is not what happens, it's why it happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where, like you said, like the knocking, even though it's a common thing, it becomes very creepy because you know why it's happening.
And the more it happens, the more like I had chills like thinking about
or
it. Like
waiting for the phone to ring or waiting for the speaking spell to go off because you know it's why it's happening. You know someone's trying to, they're using it to reach out to them. So
yeah, and it's just like, and then it's things like taking things like that, like noises like that we've heard 1,000 times and using them in ways that just make them effective. Like you're seeing them for the first time. And that's not the only example of that. That's just the main one that like, as it grew, I kept expecting it to lose the like sense of dread or magic that it had, but it never did. But like even the little, what are they, like the little tiles, the little letter tiles, like I knew when I saw those, I was like, oh, okay, but it still bothered me when he found the message with it. It still bothered me.
Because of how it was used. I mean, you knew something was going to be spelled with those tiles, but the way it happened and where it happened was because it was a cliffhanger. The first time he actually sees a word, it's a cliffhanger for 3.
Yeah.
And
that
really, And then to be used again in a seemingly meaningless way, the jumble letters. So it's really clever that it wasn't just used in a very standard way. It was used again, like so planned out.
And another great element, I think, is his use of space.
Yes.
Because that Florida house, I mean, just on the surface, not as creepy as the Blackwell house. It's very plain.
Right.
But he looks at it and he sees, all right, this hallway is the creepiest part of the house.
Right. And that camera face, looks right down it.
Down that hallway.
Yep.
You're constantly watching the door frames. You're like, okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought that same thing when he picked that house. I'm like, okay, where's this going to go? Because I think everyone is going to get a little nervous with 3. Like, what's happening now? We're out of nowhere. We're switching up locations, but that hallway and the way he sets up the camera, and then some of the angles into like the curtain, the big curtain, and the phone and everything. He has such this knack for knowing where to put the camera.
Yeah, and Angel, he doesn't. You're right. He doesn't really do a lot of. There's a couple of jump scares, if we're going to call them that.
It's all atmosphere storytelling.
Atmosphere. I mean, the table jumping. I mean, I don't know if that's you consider that a jump scare with the table.
The cabinets, maybe like when the cabinets all open and
There's a few things, but it's mostly just the storytelling built around the events that make them so unsettling.
Well, any startles were earned, I think.
Yeah. Right. I mean, the Blackwell Ghost becomes more about the mystery. Is he going to solve this mystery of what happened to these people? With some great atmospheric scares and dread in the process, which he always finds a clever way of upping the ante. I think introducing the speak and spell in 4, and
I mean, it's literally like it's the same. It's like so Steve, the breakdown, you actually have this like fresh in your head probably, but like, so the way that the story gets broke down into the sections, because they're all called Blackwell Ghost.
Yeah.
So I was thinking the same thing going into 3. I'm like, how in the world are there 7 movies about this one thing, but there's not? Right. Steve, what's the breakdown? So it's
the way I typically would view them, right? I look at it like in arcs, right? It's like you have 1 and 2 are the Blackwell Ghost story.
Yep.
then I would classify 3, 4, and 5 really being like the Florida murders and
Yeah.
like finding those bodies. 6, you get like the family drama, and 6 is
Mhm.
very much about him and his wife. And then 7, we get into a whole different subgenre
Yeah.
of
Totally
like
different.
stalkers.
7
and,
goes
like,
on. Yeah, 7 goes a crazy place.
and I really, yeah, that's sort of the way I.
Which still ties in. I mean, they still tie in.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it does.
Yeah.
But if we're really going to kind of capsule it, right? It's all telling one story, right? Because he goes to the Florida house and all. Does he go back to Florida in 6?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In a big way.
Or at the very end? I'm
Yeah.
thinking about the end when they.
Yeah. When they look in the glass, the point that makes me cry every time.
Yeah.
Florida house plays a role.
Hmm?
So the Florida house, plays a role in all those
Yeah,
movies.
yeah.
3 on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe let's talk about specifically, like, let's look at the Blackwell story, right? With
Yeah.
Ruth Blackwell, in a capsule, right? Because it really is only taking place in those first 2 movies.
Mhm.
How do you feel about kind of the Ruth Blackwell story as a whole?
Oh, I think it's good. I think the Ruth Blackwell story is a very standard found footage concept. Like he even jokes in one where his wife says, "I bet you watch a lot of Paranormal Activity," and he goes, "Yes." You can see his, and I love that. You can see his influence. He was trying to make, a Paranormal Activity film, or
Yep.
so Blair Witch or something like that. And that's, I think, what he sets up with Ruth Blackwell and her history and the kids and everything. I mean, I like it. I think he takes a very standard story and does something unique with it, because I do think 1 and 2 do stand on their own as an original good found footage film. Especially 2, because I really think he ups the ante in 2 in a lot of ways. Going back, and he basically, it's like switching it up, like the Evil Dead 1 and 2, where you got kind of the same story, but you're showing that you're up in your game. So yes. I love 1 and 2. I think 1 and 2 are great. I think, I mean, 2 definitely kept me going. One made me want to watch 2, and 2 made me want to watch 3. So So, and I think it led to also had that neat little extra thing. I don't know if you saw this, where they had like the additional footage.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there's the additional footage where you go back and you can see things that you missed, or I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that was really unique to adding the whole album element, like Ruth's favorite song and everything. So yeah, I love 1 and 2. I think they're great.
Yeah. I love this. I mean, I love that when he opted to sort of sleep on the couch, and we sort of like,
yes,
it was very different than sort of like it was a flip on like the Paranormal Activity setup, where it's the couple in the bed and the cameras. And we're like, okay, we're going to be in the living room. It's going to give us a different vibe and feel than just like watching a couple sleep in bed.
Right.
Yeah. I think one of the things that works so well for the Blackwell story on its own is like, I mean, we've talked a lot about the believability and how real it can feel at certain times. But the thing is like, I've seen a lot, like this initial setup, like you were saying, Jeff, is very, very typical found footage. Oh, we're going to capture some crazy stuff on camera. But there's this way that he has of like connecting to things emotionally. Mm-hmm. And you feel as though like you're watching someone do something that really is important to them, and they're respectful of what they're doing. Like I've seen real documentaries where these people go out and they do these things, and they're so disingenuous and they're so disconnected, or just not very respectful of the space they're occupying or whatever. And so the fact that he made this like emotional connection to the house, to this story, I think really drove home a lot of like the questioning of why keep doing it. What is the point? Like you just were like, you bought it. You were like, yeah, get it. Me too. I'm
right. And you brought up another good point, which is one of the main reasons to me, the selling point of the series is Turner Clay. I mean that's gonna sell it for you, because I personally think he's a very charismatic, funny. There's a lot of scenes with him obviously just talking to the camera, but they never slow down for me. I love the way he interacts. I love the way he's a filmmaker, he's a documentarian, and like you said, he makes the film. He adds an emotional depth to all the films.
Yeah.
And his reactions always feel genuine. I mean, you could easily feel like he's not acting. You could feel this is legit. When he's on the phone, and his reactions to learning something and everything are so good.
Yeah,
But
I totally agree.
I like I mean, even just the beginning of the franchise. You sort of get this buy-in because he's just this skeptic. I love that he used like actual footage, like that hotel
Yeah.
scene,
Yes.
hotel
Yeah.
footage of the
Yeah.
screaming from
Right.
the room, right? I mean, well, I think we've all seen that. Just I think,
Yeah, which
Mhm.
threw me for a loop, by the way. When it
yeah,
came up, I was like, oh my God, I've seen that video before.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. So what a clever way to sort of get that buy-in and make you wonder, like, is this real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and also like you said, the little things he touches, because I know we're on 1 and 2, but like just I started rewatching 3 again recently, and when he says like the poster of Sarah Baker, you can find it online. You can, like, if you know it, like it's one of those, like he does these little touches and everything where I know he's like seated. So when you could actually physically go onto a website
Mhm.
and pull up that poster, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It feels the world feels lived in,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's immersive, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to think, what are maybe some of our highlights from the first two? Did you have favorite moments, favorite scares, favorite?
I definitely love the end of 1. I thought that was really well done and shocking. Just the cabinets opening and everything.
Mhm.
When all of a sudden, like the cabinets all open, and uh, I love the whole setup with the ball, the ball moving and everything.
Yeah.
With 2, like I said, I really loved the fighting of the teeth. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
I said
Mhm.
when he, it's such a basic element, but it worked
But
so well in the framework of it. Um, and just adding depth to it. Again, you begin to feel like the whole Ruth story is real. Like, hey, this is her favorite song that's on this album, and she gets this
oh
mysterious
my
package from
God.
somebody, and he feels like he has to go back to the house, and just even like the ending with him tying it into it, which is the connection between 2 and 3, but where he says like, I feel like Ruth and I became friends, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you remember what she did right there, buddy. But I mean, it's an odd friendship you got going there, but I do
Friends with a
love how
serial killer.
I do love how he still he could have made a straight found footage film. He could have been running and screaming at the end, and it could have
Yeah.
been found footage. He could have ended up dead, but no. We made a joke the other day. I was like, someone said a movie where the bad guy wins, and I'm like, most found footage films, except
Yeah.
the Blackwell Ghost. But yeah, so I think those are some of my favorite moments. The album, the teeth finding. Like I
Yeah.
said, the first initial, okay, this guy's got something in 1, when all the cameras slam open,
Mhm.
I thought was really, really good. Definitely setting up where he was going to go down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the tension of the end of the first one with the smoke.
Yeah.
And sort of,
Yeah, right.
right. I think it just sort of built up so well and chaotic and up and
Oh
down.
yeah, the bathroom and yeah,
Yeah.
or the
And
closet
the
door.
door to the basement's opening, and
Yeah,
this is
right.
So it's very chaotic. Yeah.
Yeah.
but not in like that typical like screaming, running camera. Found
More,
footage.
yeah. You get a real sense of dread, like some
Yeah.
bad stuff's really going down here. Yeah.
Mhm. What about you, Andrew?
I don't know that I have anything outside of what y'all talked about. I think when I think about the first 2, I think of how far from a house I would try to get if I found a well like that, for starters.
Yeah.
A
wow.
well is like obviously it's a focal point, but it's
Yeah.
like it's just like nothing, like just looking at it was like enough. Like I
Right.
was so bothered. I was like, why is he so close? Like I
I remember there's a
it was
famous glitch there too. Something about the pliers are in it at one point.
the
It's
plot.
open. And
Yeah.
the next time it's closed. I'm thinking. I remember someone actually on a feed somewhere, a comment really going on about them. I'm like, dude, you're gonna make mistakes. It happens.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I think doesn't he mention it though?
He
In
does.
I think it kind of like ties in or something. Yeah.
It comes back up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with 2, yeah, the teeth were the most like, up until we get into some of the stuff in the Florida house, like that was one of the biggest like, oh my God moments, because
Yeah,
first of all, like I said, I noticed it before he addresses it like actually
Right.
says what it is. And he's like touching and moving. And I'm like, please stop, please stop, please stop. That's so gross. Oh my God. Oh my God.
When
I'm
my
like, how
daughter
does he-
started watching, my 9-year-old, I was watching it at that one on my phone, which looking back, I'm like, oh, why do I do that? But I was watching on my phone. She was playing TV, and I'm like, that happened. And I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, what? I'm like, there's gonna be teeth. And she started, and she starts watching. Like, she's like hovering over my shoulder, watching Blackwell 2, and I'm like, do you want to put it on the TV? Or she's like, yes. And so she sat there and watched all of Blackwell 2 with me, and then we watched 3 together, and it was bedtime. And she's like, you're gonna watch more without me, aren't you? And I'm like, I kind of have to. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Watch it again with her, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but then so then we're sort of left into, now remind me, how does he? Because now I'm blanking. How does he originally come across the Florida house?
So at the beginning of 3, he mentions, that he'd lost access to the Blackwell house.
Right.
But he says, and there's the tie, and he goes, I feel like ever since I was at the Blackwell house, I've been feeling like I can sense things. So he kind of indicates that the time at the Blackwell house is the reason why he can sense and feel the things moving forward.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And so he says, I wanted people to believe. So I was looking for something bigger and better. And I had a dream about Sarah Baker, and that's where it all starts.
Right.
A dream.
That's how he got there.
Yeah. So he started looking up Sarah Baker, and then he found out about Lightfoot and all that.
Mm-hmm. So so he starts researching this, right? And so we get a little bit of the backstory of Lightfoot and the father, and he commits suicide after murdering, but like they've only found, or did they never find any of the bodies at first?
Nobody was found at that point. No,
I don't think so. Not that early.
No. But yeah, but this is where where we were saying is like the use of his space in this third movie, right? Because you have essentially the hallway, the banging. Not because I know, Angel, you were saying between 3, 4, and 5. Sometimes it's a little hard to parse out.
I do not know the difference because I watched them literally back to back to back.
Yeah,
and so I honestly, the arc thing was probably, I agree, that's like the best way to break them up because I genuinely do not remember them as separate entities anymore.
Right. 3, 4, and 5 just feel like one continuous,
one big long movie. Yeah, it's so
with
I don't remember
cliffhangers. Yeah, with cliffhangers.
Yeah, I don't remember the like specifics of when this happens. Is it in this movie? I honest to God, I won't know. Yeah,
but we get the introduction of the son of Lightfoot in the third movie, right? John, right? And he's just kind of giving this testimonial about his experience with his father.
Or Joe Lightfoot. I'm sorry. Joe Lightfoot. I'm sorry, I got his name wrong.
Joe.
Oh yeah.
James.
But yeah,
he's better than me. I didn't remember any of it.
He's a poet, which I know plays in later. And I think that's pretty much it. I mean, he maybe has like a couple of scenes where he's talking to Turner through the camera.
Yeah, the first interview early on, and then at the end it comes back again.
Towards the end, yeah.
Slaps the book shut and everything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, but we really only get, I think this is where he finds the map.
Yes.
He finds the map in this one. The thing that I was a little like, with, is that the murder weapon is in the shed?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
I was like, that would be in lockup.
Would be in, yeah.
I mean, I know Florida.
He does get away with a lot with the whole criminal justice thing in these movies. I mean, he basically becomes like a co-cop for a little bit.
Oh yes, because he starts working with the guy from the
working with the guy. And anyway, I used your login information. I was like, oh, what?
It takes him a long time to get irritated with him, doesn't he? He finally says something to him, but it's like way later.
He's like, dude, you're gonna get me in trouble.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is Florida. I know they do some things differently down there. No shade to Florida.
True.
Yeah, just it's a useful tool. Why not have it around? Someone else might want to use it. I
don't know. But other than the banging, I think the phone was very effective.
Oh,
throughout this arc.
Was it 341 if I remember? Yeah, 341 or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact. It was like 341 every night or something.
340.
It was
347 or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that the number wasn't like normal. It was like midnight. It wasn't like 3 a.m. It was like a specific time that was close enough to something we were familiar with, but was also unique in its own
and
right.
When that comes back is one of the craziest playing parts of the whole series.
Oh, yeah, chills again.
Like, I still don't know if that was planned, but but anyway.
Yeah.
Beautifully.
Yeah,
So, so with 3, 4, and 5, right? So he's on this search for Sarah Baker. We get the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the map says that it was the North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Right, that was like the first like major clue I think we got.
I'm remembering so much as you're saying all these things. Go ahead.
Well, hearing North Star makes you think of the song, and that song gives me chills. But
I think maybe that. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I was just
I was like.
But I love that clue because the way there's so many layers
Mm-hmm.
to just one piece of evidence, right? Because it's more than just because the star is like at the corner of the house, so you're like, okay, this is like where the little patch of the pebbles are.
Yep.
All right. But we turn out like we're just thinking, oh, okay, this is the focal point. You just got to follow this. But then he does the investigation. And he finds out that they called the North Star this like light tower, right?
Yeah.
The signal.
It was the water tower. Yeah,
the water tower. Right?
There was a water tower, and it's with at the very end of 5. He finds that out, and it's set up like he finds out on Facebook. Like someone on Facebook looks him up, and I would buy that extra. But the guy reaches out to him, and then he gets the guy. He's like, only a local would know this. The airport people wanted to put the light on our water tower. It was taller than normal, so it lit up the whole area, and they took it down after a few days, and that's how it got its name. And then the song kicks in, and then you realize that was the key to everything. Up to that point, anyway.
Yeah.
That point. Right, because the map was not in the what was in the map wasn't in the wall. The wall was what now?
Like what was in the wall?
Right. That was at the end of 5. Oh crap, I don't remember.
Or was it the piece that went over the map?
The piece that went, yes, it was the piece that goes over the map. That folds out. That folds out.
That's right.
The one that leads to part 7, where he has the extra trail.
The other trail.
That's right. Trail where they sort of finish finding the bodies.
With the palm, the palm comes together. Yeah.
Okay. Right, but that's just why it's so beautifully weaved together. That's why it's hard to parse out 3, 4, and 5.
Right.
Because it really does feel like one cohesive story.
Yeah. These details and like thinking back to all of the pieces, it's like you feel like you're watching a true crime special.
100%.
And just how often it comes back, like the speak and spell.
Yes.
Try not to spoil, but the speak and spell spells out the letters that become part of
it's like
next thing. And then the speak and spell comes back and plays a hugely creepy role in part 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
When you find out who and why is doing it, it's just like because of part 6.
Yeah.
Which
I
basically
know you said we're avoiding. Are we avoiding spoilers, Angel?
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think we're kind of skirting around a lot of it. I think it's fine.
Okay.
For an hour discussion on 7 movies. It's not like a true like deep dive into every plot point, but I think
I've tried really hard in the last year not to say too much online or anything.
Yeah, because
when people start, I was like, go see it. Like you've got to.
Yeah, we want people to watch these.
It's not as effective unless you experience the chills for yourself.
Totally, 100% agree. And I think what's true is even the things we've said, even if they remember every little word, which is not really a thing. Going back, you watch them, it's like it's its own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I think a lot of the details that we've said so far, they're not like these big, like Luke, I am your father spoilers, you know?
No, not at all. They're just hints that there's a lot going on.
Like we could just totally drop the end of 7 and be like, all right, peace out, everyone.
Oh my God. You know what is crazy?
Here's where 7 ends.
We've talked about the speak and spell a couple of times, but it wasn't until you said something about it coming back up that I remembered that part.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
danger. Yeah.
That scared me the most.
I think that's one of the scares. Though there was 6, I thought pulled off a really good scare. And 6, I actually went back and I wondered about 6 because 6 is actually my favorite one. And I've actually 6 is actually my favorite one. And believe me, by a narrow margin because I love 4, I love 7, I love
4. I think is my favorite. Yeah,
4. A lot of people say 4, and I completely get that.
Yeah.
And the ending of 5, I think, is one of the most brilliant things too of the series. But 6,
yes,
feels like, because 5 ends on the cliffhanger where he sees the extra trail. That doesn't come back till 7, and I was like, well, that's really weird. Why did that happen? And I went back and looked at the timelines, and I think my best guess is the pandemic hit, and I think that derailed the plans for 7, which required a lot of going to the house and everything. So I think he came up with the idea for 6 as a fill-in. I could be way wrong. Maybe 6 was always playing there, but 6 does break the storyline of 5 and 7 and tell a completely different thing, which does have ties back to everything else, because he has to go back to the house to look at CB in the glass, and the phone call is tied to 6, the time and everything.
Right.
But I think for me, the reason why 6 hit so hard is it does have a great scare. It has the great moments with the kids, the boy standing in the doorway, which is an image that burns in my head. It has one of the most panicky periods of the entire series, when things just go ballistic, and then the emotional hit of the end of 6. I said, I've gone back just to watch the final 15 minutes of 6 so many times when the curtain opens. Because I get chills every time that damn curtain's open. I
don't know if I can't remember if I was messaging about it or if I tweeted about it or was in the comments.
I knew you were starting 6, and I was like, anytime someone said they were starting 6, I was like,
yeah,
all right.
and
I was setting my watch to watch.
Because the other thing is, like, and I've talked about this before, but my viewing as a horror fan prior to becoming a parent was completely different. Like this, like not that 6 wouldn't have still hit me in certain places, as someone not a parent. 100% it would. I think people can still empathize. You can still feel things. But I am telling you, like, I have a 5-year-old. And so, like, I'm watching these kids, like, oh my God, it put me in, like, I was in shambles at the end of 6.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I was legitimately crying at the end of 6. It was a mess. Really hit hard.
Yes, it really, really, really did. Yeah.
That image that you have when you see her waving at the glass, and it suddenly clicks in your head. You know exactly why she's waving, and it's just like, oh my God.
It was so good. And it's like, and the amount of dread that you feel going into that one too, because there's kids involved, you don't want anything like you're worried, you don't want things like, and you don't know where this is going to go, because again, it breaks away from the storyline a bit. And which honestly, even though it breaks up the two, like 5 and 7, I think it actually made it feel more intense anyway, because you felt like you were in uncharted waters.
I can't see it any other way now. Going back now, I don't think I would ever want 7 to follow 5. No. I love the break now to watch it in order to get that break of 6. Because then it also leaves you in suspense for the end of 5. Because the end of 5, then you don't find out what that all means until 7.
Later.
Because then he goes back to actually follow that extra trail, and then 7 spins completely out of control and becomes becomes a very real danger. And
it's different. And 7 was one that I had to sit on for a few days because it was so different. Like I wasn't sure. I knew I liked it, but I also knew I probably didn't like it as much as I liked the rest of them. And I had to really think through like the things that were happening, how it made me feel, how it connected, and all, to really get like a full like opinion on, you know what I mean? Like, cause it's so different. Like it genuinely like, and just my brain didn't know how to process it being so different. It was one that I didn't have an opinion on until I had.
And also, where's he going to go from there? Because 7 ends on. I mean, although there are supernatural elements in 7, like the warning and everything, it still ends on a very real threat. Like you find out that the threat's been very physical and very real, and you also, find out that maybe things you knew all along aren't what's really happening. So it makes me wonder where he's going to go with 8 too.
And at the same time, I have no doubt. I have no doubts that whenever I'm manifesting it, whenever we get 8, like I have no doubt that it's going to just work. I
kind of really, when 8 drops, want to be like, hey, should we just like fire this up at the same time? Like just like be like public, like, cause there's a pretty big Blackwell
Let's-
following now on Twitter. I got to be like, let's just all do this at the same
Watch party.
Everybody watch it.
time.
Like Friday night, 8:00. Let's go.
Yeah, right. Let's just go. Let's see. Have a private room somewhere where we can chat about it after.
Just chat and watch
I
it.
have a hard time believing we're not going to love it. You know.
I know. I feel the same way. I thought it was funny, like all the like the joking about like on Twitter about like how he woke up one morning and had like all these random charges sent to him from Amazon because everybody's like going through and like purchasing it to watch.
I have to wonder what that was like for him. I was like, I wish he was more interactive because I mentioned that on the email. I said, there's a growing following. Like you may have noticed. because it's got to be, as opposed to streaming on Twitter, it's got to be a very instant notice thing, like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. You know, I know like because I have sell something on Bandcamp. I know exactly when someone buys the album.
Exactly.
He had to be seeing like that, and it had to be a crazy good feeling too.
Oh, yeah. Now, because he's so secretive, does he do interviews?
I've never seen anything.
Yeah.
I've seen like maybe 2 pictures of him outside of a movie.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But it's so good at the same time. It's very like extended Blair Witch. You know what I mean? Where it's like very like, we don't know what his other life is like because as far as we know, this is it. You know, it's wild.
His last 2 posts on Facebook, I think one was January where he said, "Hey, it really helps if you can follow this. I've got something big in the oven, or I may have something big in the oven." And then August, he posted a clue.
Yep.
Which you actually can unscramble using the thing from 4, which I did. Yeah.
And then I think you had talked about this on Twitter, Jeff. The last time he did a clue, a movie followed not long after.
It wasn't long after. I've gone back and looked through the feeds on Facebook, and it's usually the space between a clue and the movie and he does drop a trailer, and I'm a little hesitant because I've gone back and watched trailers now, and some of the trailers feel a little spoilery more, and I don't mind spoilers. I'm not a big I'm usually okay with that. You can let me know. But for some reason with the Blackwell, they I don't know how much I kind of want to be completely blind going in.
Yeah, I don't think I'd watch
the mystery's the thing.
I don't think I'd watch, but he does drop a trailer before the movie drops too. So that's probably the next thing we're going to see is the trailer for 8. Which, like I said, I think it's extremely likely that we're getting a part 8, you know.
Yeah, I imagine it would be too. But it doesn't seem to lack in follow through. But I know you've got you're doing your live watch in just a few minutes, so I guess we can wrap up. I just want to make sure you have time to get to that. I genuinely like, I loved the first one, but I'm so glad that you did post about them because like we said already, it's so hard to believe that a franchise can have that many movies and still be like, you know.
I've always said too, when I post something on Twitter, it's always going to be my opinion, and it might not be everyone's cup of tea.
Sure,
but it's always legitimately what I felt. You know, I always the fact that I was getting more and more excited watching them was because I was getting more and more excited. And so when people really started to go along with it, I loved it. Like that was such a rush.
Yeah,
everybody else getting into it.
Yeah. Well, and seeing your excitement, you know, as you were able to keep going through them and you were talking about them and you weren't saying things like that would lead me to believe that it was just entertaining or funny or silly at some point, or like I was like, I got more and more intrigued, and I was like, I was so mad. I was like, man, they were literally all on TV like 2 freaking months ago. Yeah. And so I just finally bit the bullet and watched them all, and I'd like 0 regrets.
Right.
Like,
I've had very few people tell me they regretted, you know, spending the $30-$40, or I know some people just went, because some people actually did go, you know, should I just buy these? And I'm like, I don't want to tell you that, but I said I can tell you that I rented them all and now I own them all.
Yeah.
So if that's a hint.
I almost feel like I should have bought them because I'm gonna rewatch them.
So I've had people say they were glad they just went back and they actually just started buying them at first because they wanted to rewatch them.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some rewatchability there. And I think also talking about, because I haven't watched them all the way or anything since I watched them the first time, and still thinking about those moments, they still have a physical impact on me. I mean, that speaks volumes, because that does not happen with every single scary movie or found footage movie that I watch.
Yeah. Like I said, when they even like in part 6 and then 7, when you see his room, You actually see his office, and he's got the posters of every movie. That one told me he's damn proud of what he's done, and he should be. And 2, I want that room. I literally want a room that has the 7 Blackwell Ghost posters on it. I'm like, that is so cool. Like, where can I buy these? But there again, it just adds to like that whole feel like he's doing the documentaries, and he knows, he's telling you these are documentaries. Here are the posters of the first 6, and then he's like, oh, and now bad things are happening to me in 7, you know?
Yeah.
Which also is why 7's so effective, I think. Because now you're like, oh my god, is it?
I know. I think him addressing the things he chooses to address really just even add more to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as fans of the franchise, I think we want to see it succeed, right? I think going back to sort of like, I think you know, it is a shame that like it often just kind of falls by. I remember, you know, it's so funny. Even before you were tweeting about it, Jeff, like I remember seeing the posters just like randomly like suggested and be like, oh, that looks like okay, but like it really takes word of mouth to like hype it up.
Oh yeah. There's so much good stuff out there that goes under the radar.
True.
Because it doesn't have the big PR push, because it's not a push, because it's not a mainstream, and it takes someone really legitimately saying they're excited about it to kind of buy other people in, and then it becomes a snowball, you know, which is cool.
We could be the Blackwell army. He's gonna be like, what the hell? Where's this coming from? These movies have been coming out for years. What's happening?
Yeah.
He's like, one of these days I do want to meet him and say back, just out of curiosity, in March of 2023, did you see from like March to April, May of 2023, did you have like a spike? I'm just curious.
Let's host a Blackwell convention and see if he shows up.
That'd be cool, yeah. That would be cool.
That would be wild.
Can you imagine?
We've already talked about doing a Hell House convention out of like the Carmichael, so maybe we can combine them. And
Where do they film Hell House again? Because it's so funny because it takes place in the county next to mine.
Right, but it actually was filmed in the county next to mine.
Yeah.
The Waldorf State of Fear is where the first 3 were filmed, and that's 90 minutes from me, which is why I hopped over there to film the video. And then the Carmichael Manor was actually also filmed in PA. I found that's about 2 hours away.
That's so funny because I'm in Westchester. It was in Rockland, just over the bridge over the Hudson.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't think it's there. Yeah, when I first saw.
It takes place. Yeah, it takes place in New York, but they filmed it here in PA. But yeah,
so funny. I mean, it's, you know, it is very open over there. You know, it's totally not what people think of New York, right? I think about the city, but it is very open on that.
Well,
side.
It's funny when you see the Waldorf because it doesn't look creepy at all. I mean, it looks creepy because it's on the house, but it's right next to the road. Like when I was walking in front of the road, I was like scared that I was filming, and like cars are speeding by, and I'm like, turn but it's not like it doesn't. It's not off the beaten path. It's on a very busy highway, but next to the world's largest country store. Actually, like there's a big country store, and it's funny because I was there with my son at a pumpkin festival, and you can see the Abaddon. The back of the Abaddon, right, as you're walking around at this pumpkin thing.
That's wild. I would road trip it to go see that. Pennsylvania's not that far from New York. I would do it.
Yeah.
But I know Angel was saying, I know you have a special watch party. So
yeah, I've been doing the Screenbox Tuesdays every Tuesday now. Just spontaneously happened with Secret Santa, and now it's become like a weekly thing. And
oh, that's fun though.
Yeah. So I did that one. Then we decided to do Onyx. I'm like, well, let's just make it a thing. And we did End of the Line last week, and now we have we're gonna do the new Christmas anthology that just came out with Bill Moseley, isn't it, and everything.
Oh, that's nice.
That'd be fun.
Right. So where can everyone find you, Jeff?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Jeff Whitmire 47, on my Bandcamp page, which is jeffwhitmire.bandcamp.com. That's where you can buy Stabby Road singles, things like that. And then I'm on Twitter at Jeff Whitmire 1.
Yep. And the links for everything are in the description for the YouTube and where you can get Stabby Road.
Sweet. For everyone at home, thank you for watching, and we will catch you maybe for Blackwell 8.
That'd be great.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. We had a great time. Yeah.
Have a good night. Yeah, bye.
Night.